A baby P1? The best McLaren road car? These are terms that have been synonymous with this, the McLaren 675 LT. Released in 2015, the 675 LT is a decade-old car now. It's based on the McLaren 650S, but that LT badging means that this is quite the more serious piece of kit. Additional aero like the carbon fiber front splitter and larger active rear wing not only increase downforce by 40% over the 650S, but also attribute to some striking looks, especially when outfitted in McLaren Papaya Orange. 50% of the engine components are new, like turbochargers and lightweight connecting rods, both a carryover from the almighty P1, which contribute to reduced reciprocating mass and improved engine responsiveness. Overall, it's 100 kilograms lighter than the 650S, has 15% shorter gearing, features carbon fiber ceramic brakes, and a myriad of other performance upgrades. 666 horsepower to the rear wheels, 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds, 0 to 128 in just 8 seconds, and a top speed of 203 miles an hour. Like I said, serious piece of kit. Now, let's go drive it.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are now sat in the McLaren 675 LT. And it's not only just a 675 LT, it's a Spider. As you can see, we have the top down. Now, this car is based on the 650S, which I've actually not driven. So I'm quite the lucky boy to be sitting here in a 675 LT before a 650S, that's for sure. Furthermore, it's funny, the only ever McLarens I've ever driven have been LT cars. So furthermore, I'm quite the lucky boy. I've had some amazing experience in McLaren cars so far. The reason I say that is because I'll be using the 765 and some of the other supercars I have driven to be somewhat of the reference point to what I talk about and how this car feels. So let's answer that question after I do a poll. Oh my gosh! So how does the McLaren 675 LT truly feel to drive? Well, I think the first thing I have to mention is it's race car bred. It's a visceral, raw car. I mean, it takes what the formula was for the 650S and just turns it up a notch. It's really a study of how small changes to a car can bring out a whole new car, a whole new feeling, and just elevate the whole driving experience. Now, what do I think about the seating position? Well, I think it's fantastic. There's great adjustability. I can pull the steering wheel close enough. My arms are kind of bent. I like to have my elbows bent. I like to have the steering wheel close to me. And the seats are actually quite comfortable. These are the bucket seats in the McLaren Super Series. They're a little bit older, so if you compare them to the Senna seats in the 765 LT, I think they just have a little bit more leather on them. They're not as rigid, so they offer a little bit better of a better experience on that front. And then the pedal position, all that stuff is fantastic. It's truly race-like. And speaking about the pedals, they're actually titanium pedals, which I love, not only just to look at, but they really offer great grip and feel. Now the engine, as I downshift, there you can hear it. Maybe a little bit windy with the top down, so I'll put it up a little bit later on the review. Oh my goodness. Those snaps and pops. Gosh! This thing is ferocious. Ferocious. in a straight line. So what is the engine? It's a 4-liter twin-turbo V8. What is that thing that is just powering us down the straight there? It makes 666 horsepower or 675 PS. But I think the thing to remember is that this car it's 10 years old. And the reason why I bring that up is because it is just insane how fast this car is. We think about McLarens nowadays, or even just other supercars. So many of them are in the 700 horsepower range, but this car, I would argue it could be quicker than them, or it feels quicker than them at least. So the fact that this car is a decade old and is still so relevant, when in the last 10 years, the horsepower race has just become outrageous, is a true testament to McLaren and the 675 LT. And the other thing is the sound of the engine, right? I wouldn't say the engine is the star of the show here in the 675 LT. It sounds great, and it's got a really racy tone to it, which I love. And it's got those snaps and pops when you downshift. Let's see if we can get one. There it was. There it is. But it's not the star of the show in terms of sound like a Ferrari F12 or a Lamborghini Aventador SVJ, a V12 Lamborghini is. I think what truly is the star of the show for the McLaren is the way excuse me, got interrupted by that straight there. But what I think the real star of the show is the way this car just communicates with you. Everything from, so we talk about the engine, right? The engine mounts are 300% stiffer in the 675 LT than in the 650S. What does that do? It feeds the vibrations of the engine into your seat, even when the car's idling, but also when you're on throttle. The whole car vibrates. It's communicating with you what's going on. Then we can talk about the steering. McLaren is still one of the only manufacturers that uses hydraulic steering, and oh my goodness, the feedback is sensational. The weight is sensational under load in corners. I heard other people talking about this was some of the best steering they've ever felt in a car, and I was pessimistic and hesitant to believe that, but after driving it, it's up there. If not, it's up there, and it may be the top. I mean, I'm gonna do some weaving here just to kind of talk about it, but it translates the load of the car, the load on the tires. It translates the shift in momentum that you feel in the car. It's just fantastic. And when under load, like on this corner here, you just feel grip. All right, so I put the top up so you guys could hear me a little bit better, so that wind is not flying in our faces, but it's fascinating. I mean, this steering is actually 10% faster than in any other, or at the time it was 10% faster than any other McLaren in the Super Series. And I can feel that reactiveness, but it's not too quick, and it's not too quick for the road. which I thought it could be. It is tremendous when you're actually under load, how the car sticks and how much communication and confidence you get through this steering. It's really down to the chassis, and specifically the suspension in the front, which is a double wishbone suspension, which is really hats off to McLaren, how this car truly is confidence inspiring, but it's just so immersive in the way you can drive the car. It really just puts you into that seat and gives you so much feedback. Moreover, I love the braking feel. It's very much race car brakes. Doesn't have too much bite in the beginning, and you really got to push into it to get those carbon ceramics active. But my oh my, once you do give it some force, this thing has tremendous stopping power. And I think I got to take a step back for a second as well. I think part of the reason why this car is so damn good as well is it's one of the lightest cars I've ever driven. It's one of the lightest supercars I've ever driven by far, especially a road car. It's 1,230 kilograms. An AMG GTC is behind us, and for reference, that thing is 1,750 kilograms. 400 kilograms less. And there's that old famous saying about, you know, I drove a car and wondered why it was so good. And then I looked at the weight and realized why. Hold up one second. Got some twisties here. You know, this is really where you can feel that front end grip. The car is so well balanced as well. I remember this being a little bit of an issue when I drove. I mean, I shouldn't be saying this, but we just went through that corner. Miles an hour, not kilometers an hour. And the car could have gone way faster. It's unbelievable. But the point I was going to make earlier is this car being a mid-engine car offers just a great weight distribution, right? And when I drove the GT3 and the GT3 RS, the 992 generation, when I was dipping into corners sometimes, the rear end almost did a pendulum swing on me a couple of times, and this car just felt so planted through those corners there. I actually love it more than a GT3 RS because it's faster. It still brings that race car technology and feel, but it's just more confidence inspiring. Yeah, it doesn't have that flat six, but you got this, a twin turbo V8 engine that goes like a mother. You know, a lot of people have described this to be a baby P1, which, number one, due to its looks, I can tell why, but then more so, it's just the way it drives. The other thing that I love is, number one, the gearbox is tremendous. The shifts are instant. But further going along with the gearbox, you can upshift and downshift with the same paddle. So this is the upshift paddle. I press it, we go into 6th gear. If I push it forward, it goes into 5th gear. So I can downshift literally by pressing one paddle, which means you can technically drive with one hand. You may not want to do that, but yeah, quite a monster this thing is. I mean, there truly is no other way to describe it. Also, being that there's only 500 Spyders and 500 coupes in the world as well, just makes this car a rarity.
The 675LT is extraordinarily fast, raw, and aggressive, yet it's very approachable to drive. Baby P1 makes sense to me. Although the best McLaren road car, I gotta get myself in some other McLaren cars before I can answer that. In the end, I think the simplest way I can put it is that the 675 LT provided a level of connection and immersion that is unrivaled to all the other cars I've driven. 675 LT, you're a special one.